This episode of Podcast Beyond is presented by My.Games and their new shooter, Warface Breakout.
Beyond and hello, everyone. My name is Jonathon Dornbush, and this is Podcast Beyond, episode 652 of IGN's weekly PlayStation show, where we still continue to be able to talk about PlayStation 5 games for real. It is a real topic we can actually talk about concretely and stop hypothesizing about. So we're going to be doing that a bit this week, and of course, also talking about The Last of Us Part 2. Because, you know, it's a pretty big game that just came out recently. I am joined this week by Brian Altano.
What's up?
How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. I'm very good. I feel like I haven't been on the show in a long time because of IGN Summer of Games, but it's good to be here now.
Also, a week is secretly 2 months. So
in 2020 time, yes, for sure.
We're also joined by this week by a very special guest, Kahlief Adams from Spawn on Me. Thank you for joining us.
Sadate on the tippy tie, everyone here at Beyond. I am very excited to rock with you all this week. I'm feeling very, really happy to chill.
I'm happy that we're kicking off a show with a Pootie Tang reference because I did not expect to get that today.
I did that literally just to throw off all the listeners to be like,
you got them all except for me. Jonathan, please watch Pootie Tang if you get a chance.
I think I wasn't allowed to as a kid, and so I've never seen it.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, be sure to. My cousin and my uncle would tell me about it, and they'd like make references around the dinner table because they knew I couldn't have seen it because my parents wouldn't let me, and I always felt terrible, so I've never seen it. But be sure to write in your favorite Pootie Tang reference to beyond@ign.com. No, but for those in the audience who may not know your work, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to Spawn on Me, your work in the gaming industry, and yeah.
Word. It is weird to say that I am in the gaming industry for almost 10 years now. I started off doing a blog called the Small Point Blog some years ago, then transferred over and switched over to doing a podcast over in 2013. Started and conceived with my friend Cicero Holmes out in Chicago. We wanted to do a show called Spawn on Me that was about, conversations around Blackness, around spotlighting people of color in the video game industry. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the past almost 7 years now of servicing those conversations and having great guests and having good, real deep thoughts about, just the way the world infects games and how it works in both directions. So it's been a really interesting ride for sure.
Well, and of course, I definitely would recommend, I know it's sort of how we started talking, of course, but if you haven't watched the Spawn on Me episode titled Lesson in Blackness, it is fantastic and a wonderful, very necessary conversation that I really appreciate you and everyone who guested on that episode for putting together. And of course, the weeks before and since of that show has been great to listen to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, we'll be talking about PlayStation this week, as we do every week on the show. So I wanted to jump in and give people who may not know you or maybe who do a little bit of your PlayStation history. Could you tell us a couple of favorite PlayStation exclusive series or games? Sort of what's your history with PlayStation?
Ooh. I mean, I'm old school, old gray PS1, blue laser, Khalif, rocking PlayStation gear. I'm a huge MGS fan. I love the Metal Gear series. Hideo is still the GOAT in lots of different ways, even though he tells the most convoluted stories in the business. A big fan of his work, big fan of the Last of Us series, and really interesting, or I should say lately, I've been really digging into Dreams, which has been something I've loved ever since I first got a chance to see it in 2005. So lots of different pockets in which I kind of get my PlayStation gaming in. I want to give a big shout out to a game that hardly anybody remembers, and it is one of my favorite PlayStation games. It was called 4 a.m., which was this music game that used the Move controllers, and you could basically craft music using and pointing the Move controllers at the quadrants of your screen. So I think it was from Q Games. And it was one of the best music generators on the planet. So if you haven't had a chance to check that game out, you should definitely go look that up.
I will dig into that. I don't think I've ever heard of that game, actually, or maybe I have and forgot about it completely. But man, because I remember like the Move controllers were kind of like side-eyed, like the second they rolled out, because it was PlayStation's Wiimote, but with like a clown nose on the front of it, and It was. And then we just ended up having to use them for like 15 years. But
it was pretty fantastic. Basically, you couldn't see the crowd, but there was a visualizer on screen that would tell you if people were digging your performance while you did your kind of machinations and movements throughout the space. And it was great because it used all the functions of the Move controller in a way that nobody else was doing it. So you can move back and forth and give more reverb, give echo. You can do all this cool stuff with it, but it never caught on because people weren't really down with music generators back then. So really, really fun game.
I wish, that sounds like something I wish that was built into the music creation in Dreams. That sounds like that kind of goes perfectly hand in hand.
For sure.
Speaking of the Move controllers, though, and those undead nightmares that continue to be in our drawers 15 years later, do you have any PSVR experience, or do you enjoy VR gaming in general? Because we have a sizable PSVR audience, I think, on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Super Hypercube fan when I had because I gave my PSVR away because I knew someone was really excited about having one, and at the time I wasn't really using it, so I gave mine away to a friend. But Super Hypercube was huge. I remember at PAX a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, who knows what time is at this point. I got a chance to check out the Iron Man VR, which I thought was fantastic. A lot of people didn't give that thing a lot of love at the show, but I remember having so much fun with it and really feeling for the first time like I was actually Iron Man while playing that game. So like I'm a big VR head anyway. I do that stuff. I did that stuff at my real job. So getting a chance to do that when I go home is also super fun too.
Nice. Yeah. It and Iron Man now is coming out in a week and a half. It's kind of crazy that that's finally here. I'm excited. Whole thing.
I like the idea of your real job not being video game related and you just being like standing somewhere wearing you're a supervisor on a site and you're like, wait, what was that?
This is the worst bank teller ever. Just like, why is he not looking at me? He's not paying attention to me at all. His VR headset nonsense.
He's trying to kind of dope money. I don't want Bitcoin. He needs to stop it. Well,
Jonathan, can we talk about The Last of Us? I'm itching to talk about The Last of Us. I don't get to see people anymore. I don't get to hang out with people anymore. I go on the internet and people yell at me for talking about this game. Sorry to cut you off. I just really want to talk about The Last of Us.
What sort of show do you think you're on? Why? No, of course we're going to talk about The Last of Us.
I know.
Let's, throw the very precise and specific run of show I build out every week. Let's just jump into The Last of Us. Because it is definitely, it's the biggest thing. There's PS5 game updates that I definitely want to touch on. But let's jump into The Last of Us. Let's spoiler free at first, and when we want to get into spoiler territory a little bit, we can. Of course, we did a full spoiler free discussion when the review embargo was up a couple weeks ago. So if you want more extended thoughts from Simon Cardy, Janet Garcia, and Mark Medina, they were all on that episode with me as they had beaten it by that time. But yes, we should definitely be jumping in because I know a lot of people have finally had their hands on it. Came out only 4 days ago, which feels crazy. But
wow, yeah.
Since last Friday. So yeah, let's both get your thoughts. Khalif, I want to start with you. You've beaten the game. You've talked about it on Spawn on Me, but give us your overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, beat the game, put a review out. It's on our YouTube channel. Check it out. It is, I think that Naughty Dog continues to showcase just why they are so good at what they do. I think they're masters at crafting stories. They're masters at trying to give you not only new characters to talk about, but old characters that you really care about and going through their character arcs throughout. This game was fantastic and felt really it felt like they took the time to craft not only the story that they wanted to make, but one that they felt the audience would actually feel satisfied by, which I think is really important. It's so weird to not talk about spoilers after having talked about spoilers.
You just did a big show with Alana Pierce, right?
Yeah. So did that last night, and we just went ham about all the stuff that was in there. But I to come away from the game with this feeling that the stories that they tried to share were full and complete and rounded out characters in a way that I didn't expect, while also giving you new baddies to kind of think about in ways that I didn't know that they were going to be able to do. Of course, with the combat being so brutal and the world being so fierce, that added extra layers of stress into that game that I did not expect to go into feeling. But again, Naughty Dog, their writing is fantastic. They continue to world build in ways I've never seen before, and they are just like taking the games to new levels. It made me really excited to see what this thing is going to look like on PS5 when it drops, because we know that version is coming. So I don't even know what this thing is going to look like if it looked so good on current gen. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's straight up like one of the most beautiful, might be the most beautiful. I mean, in terms of like detail and density, I still think that something like Horizon, and even to a lesser extent, Death Stranding with what it does with minimalism is some of them, I would say, more gorgeous, vast open world experiences. But in terms of like the moment to moment detail in this game it is unmatched. It is unbelievably beautiful. I found myself like gawking at little corners of it like crazy. I actually wasn't the biggest fan of Uncharted 4. I thought that game felt a little long in the tooth. When they first announced The Last of Us, I was like, I don't think we need this game. The first one was perfect. When they said that this was gonna be their longest game yet, I was like, I kind of winced. I was like, oh no, I don't want this just to be long for the sake of it. But actually having played it and finished it, I think I put probably 25, 30 hours into it. I thought that outside of a couple of moments and a couple sections that were a little soggy, and a couple of like this sort of like there's 100 times in the game where you're kind of doing pretty similar things in terms of opening a drawer, walking in a room and mashing the button, hoping you can pick up items in the dark. There's a lot of circumstances where they're like a character's like, the door's locked, what should we do? And you look up and there's like a window above it and you're like, go through the window. And there's a lot of stuff like that. But for the most part, man, I really thought this was masterful storytelling. And I think like you totally nailed it, Khalif, like in terms of making you care about these characters, it really did that for me. And I know a lot of people are avoiding this game because of what they've read. And I know a lot of people have preconceived notions about where it goes. I think if you just read the beats, on paper, it absolutely would be a disappointing set of scenarios. And I think they're almost justified and apprehensive about not wanting to drop $60 on something that, frankly, like if you just wrote out the Cliff Notes versions of, it doesn't really sound that enticing. But I think just in the same way that like I can't really get a lot from looking at somebody's travel pictures as much as I can go getting on a plane and doing that myself. Or just like reading a couple paragraphs about a book or a movie or something like that. I think that this is one of those things that like I really implore people who are even vaguely interested in this or care about storytelling in this medium, or just awesome gameplay, to check this thing out. Because like you mentioned Metal Gear, like I think this really takes that like that quintessential like sort of blueprint of Kojima classic stealth and just builds upon it in ways that I absolutely adore it, especially as like a horror fan. Like to take all that stealth stuff and infuse it with like wretched, horrible creature monsters, like that is so completely my jam. And it made me so happy. Like just to bring all that stuff together, man. Yeah, I really, really, really like this game. I could get in a laundry list of nitpicks, but like top level is that I really love this game, and I really urge people who are even vaguely interested in it, even if you've read the spoilers and stuff like that, give it a chance, because like you can't get gameplay from a GIF or like a low res meme that somebody put more muscles on. Like you gotta play the video game. Like that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's something I definitely, especially if you're someone who I think only heard story bits from pre-launch, not all of the leaks were true and didn't convey the full story, and some I think were specifically taken out of context to create a narrative that just didn't exist. And
when those things take place too is also important, because I mean, I think some people thought that some of those leaks were sort of the end of the whole thing, and in other ways they're the catalyst in which creates the scenarios and conflicts that move afterwards. And like people looked at it like it's the end, and it's really just sort of the beginning of how everything else opens up without spoiling anything.
Warface Breakout is a new tactical competitive online first-person shooter looking to bring a Counter-Strike experience over to the PS4 and Xbox One. The rules are simple. It's a 5v5 where the attackers have to try and plant the bomb while the defenders try and stop them. Breakout's central focus is on its competitive nature, where high-level gameplay and teamwork play a pivotal role. And what better way to show off this element than inviting CSGO pro player Stewie2K and Call of Duty pro player Scump to team up and show off their skills.
We have bomb down? Oh my gosh, I just ripped that guy! Oh my, like a band-aid! Oh, the last one's on me!
Your aim is crisp right now, Scott.
You can catch the full-length video on IGN.com or our YouTube channel, but spoiler alert, Stewie2K and Scump may have dominated the competition.
Oh my gosh, they're stacking B. I got one. I got two. On B site. I got three on site. Oh my gosh, they're getting pieced up. Let's go, ace! Pistol round ace.
Ooh, that's a highlight right there.
Warface Breakout can be purchased for $19.99 and will bring free seasonal updates like the release of Season 1, which is available now and introduces ranked matches, new seasonal challenges, and exclusive cosmetic rewards.
Yeah, I kind of loved having had played. This is one of those games where it was really nice to have played it before everybody else. I'd done all the work to get all the spoilers out of my way, muted every word on the possible planet that I could mute, and then getting a chance to remember the conversations that happened from the two really important pre-launch pieces of promo material, when everyone had all these things that they were like, oh, they're going to do this, and oh, that's terrible, why would you do that? And none of those things really were what actually happened. It was super satisfying in a weird way. It was like, nope, you totally botched that whole thing that you were talking about beforehand.
Yeah, totally.
One interesting thing that I do want to bring up that I almost feel like is a disservice to the game was some of that marketing push, because they really did focus in on the, like, it's about the cycles of violence, and it's about, you know, the terrors that we can inflict on humanity. And certainly in this time, a lot of that is, you know, very easy to draw parallels to. But I do think so much of the story that, for reasons I understand, because they do want you to experience it, and like Brian, you were saying, it demands to be experienced and played through. But so much of this game is about love and the connections that bind us, and not just the connections that grow out of anger, but the connections that do grow out of our affections, both romantic and platonic and familial and everything, but all of the love that we feel toward other people and how that can influence our lives. And I feel like that it's so powerful when you see that play out.
Yeah. I think it's like, these are ultimately a story about how revenge can consume and destroy and rot us out from the inside and blind us to things that, you know, are detrimental to everyone around us. And I think a lot of people have been in situations where they're so focused on getting revenge on somebody or something that when they do finally get what they want, it's not what they want. And also not really understanding how much they have to push aside to focus on that. And I think that's, I honestly can't really think of a video game that's done that in this way. And it's a weird thing to do, because this is a medium that is predominantly populated by sort of like kick-ass hero fantasies. Like, you don't really want, like, when you sit down after a long ass week at your real job, doing your real work, or dealing with your family, your friends, stress, all this other crap, especially right now, I think the last thing a lot of people want is sort of like a sad, harrowing, morose tale about revenge and violence and stuff like that. But for me, I'm one of those absolute weirdos that has always turned to significantly darker escapism in pop culture during dark times. Like, I remember, like, the weekend my mom, like, passed away, I went to go see Blade Runner 2049, and, like, I was like, well, things are bad, but not that bad. Jeez. That, for me, that's always been like a weird level of escapism. I also think that, like, there's that movie Funny Games, and the director of it, he made it twice, actually. Like, he remade it, and it's a story about a group of teenagers that break into a bunch of, like, rich people's houses and basically torture them and and hurt them. And his whole thing was like, I'm going to tell you what this movie is, and if you still go to see this movie, then you're getting what you're asking for, and don't be mad at me if I deliver the thing that you came here to see. And so I think that like I had a sort of similar reaction a couple years ago on The Walking Dead when they started bashing in principal cast members in the head with a bat. A lot of people bailed on that show and never came back. And I stuck around for a while. I left because ultimately I wasn't crazy about, like, it just felt a little too samey for me. But I was kind of appalled that people were so that people hated where that went, because I was like, it's in the title, man. Like, you signed up for it. Like, the game's called The Last of Us. It's not really like, I had a guy tweet me and he's like, I wanted more adventures from this and this, and I was like, yeah, but I mean, like, maybe you should, like, maybe there's a million other franchises for that. I think this one specifically is not. It's finding hope and vigilance in the worst case scenario possible that just keeps getting worse. If only
Naughty Dog had made another series of globetrotting adventures, allowed you to experience fantastical stories that didn't really change the scope of the world, but still were fun each time. It's a shame.
I'm actually really surprised at how much we're alike, Brian, on this, because I am like a huge horror fan, and I was sad like maybe a month ago about something that happened, and a friend of mine asked me to be on their show, which was a horror related show, and I love horror porn.
Which one?
Super gore porn stuff, like all that stuff, like really, really terrible stuff that nobody wants to watch. So I was like, I'm gonna try to feel better about myself and watch the Poughkeepsie tapes, and he was like, "What are you talking about? That movie is awful and terrible." And I was like, it does that thing where it's like, it's not that bad. It's way less. This is way worse than the thing that is in this space. And it's also interesting because, like, this is definitely a revenge tale in lots of different ways, but it's also an empowerment tale, which I don't think a lot of people have really dug into, because they don't have that idea, or at least some folks in the community that I've seen have had like negative connotations about the arc of Ellie. Are willing to see a woman be strong in ways that we're not used to, and being, part of that revenge plot that we're not used to. And I'm like, you should go see I Spit on Your Grave. Like, that's a movie you should go see. Like, and that's what I think of when I think of this part of Ellie and the movements that she goes through and the ideas that she's having, is this like, I have a plan and I will do this, and I'm going to do this. Kill Bill did it some years ago. Again, another fantastic revenge movie that is has a woman at the forefront. It's a lot of pieces that go along with that conversation. But I think, Naughty Dog, for all the things that have been said over the past couple of years, they still are fairly progressive in that way. And I think that, to me, means a lot for the space. It means a lot for the future of the space. And it gets us to have way more diverse stories that we all want to care about and dig into. So I applaud them for going ham on all the directions that they went to, because I think it made the game better and it makes the space better.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I don't think every video game protagonist needs to be this sort of like wrought, deeply flawed, horror victim of society, who is also like fighting with her own or his own demons constantly. Sometimes I do like to play like a Super Mario game where the dude just jumps on stuff and yells wahoo and cheers. But I appreciate that we do get something like this every couple of years. And I like you guys have said, like they make Uncharted. They've made basically like 7 Temple of Doom games at this point, and they're all fun as hell. Like I said, Uncharted 4 was a little long for me. That's like, I have to point that out because it has been very difficult to talk about why I love The Last of Us 2 without people telling me that I'm a paid shill. And I have to point out that their game right before this, I mean, actually, I loved Lost Legacy. I really loved it. But Uncharted 4, like, I was pretty vocally like against that game, not against it. I just like, I wasn't super into it. And a bunch of people at Naughty Dog unfollowed me on social media because like they probably didn't want to hear my garbage. maybe they still don't, but that's okay. I'm just doing my job. I think that it's really important that this game exists right now. I think it's again, like, I think, to reiterate, I think it's like it's pretty sad how many people have made up their mind about it before really digging into it. I also think it's like there's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing with any sort of female protagonist, because if she's sort of, if she looks like Ellie or Ray, like she gets called a Mary Sue, and if she's strong, she gets called a man. And so there's really like, so what the right? Like, so what?
Right.
Like, so your options there are basically don't write female characters at all because you'll never win, which obviously you don't want anyone to do, or you just make the story you want to make and hope it does well. And it's looking like it's shattering sales records. So I'm interested to see what happens once the population at large gets their hands on this and they see where things go. In terms of like Joel, like maybe I played the last game wrong, but I never came out of the first Last of Us game thinking he was like the GameFAQs video game character of the year or some shit, you know, like that is a
him to go discover Atlantis in the sequel. He was
I mean that is a deeply flawed character that made an incredibly personal and borderline selfish decision out of mourning for his own daughter with this, you know, kind of surrogate replacement that he picked up off the street. And like his choice at the end of the first game, spoilers, was to either save this girl who he would basically use to fill the role of his daughter who had been killed, or potentially risk her life medically to create a virus that would go on to save millions. And his response to that was to shoot a doctor in the head. And so there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack there. And it's really hard to like look at that and immediately be like, oh, this guy should never get any comeuppance for that. Like this, how he should go out is up for debate, but he definitely deserves a little bit of comeuppance for that.
Here's the weird part about that too, where all the folks who are super mad about it, like Team Mad is like in full effect right now. Like Team Mad is getting their love right now. But the thing that bugs me out is you are in this world where everything is trying to kill you. You can't go into any world like that and not expect you to make an enemy at some point that's going to try to come get you. And I think that to me is the part where this disconnect between the folks who were just like, Joel didn't deserve to go out like that, and he went out. And I'm like, have you never wronged someone ever and like had never expected them to be mad at you in a real way for longer than the small amount of time that you made them mad? Like, this person murdered mad people.
Yeah. Now also remove.
Before going forward, I think let's say we're in full spoiler territory here.
Okay.
Just to be safe. Red, our producer, I am not 100% sure if you have finished the game, so feel free to mute us. And when you see me doing this, you can turn the volume back on. Just assume the audio is working. But yeah, I do want to get into exactly what you're saying, Khalif, because it's like he went on a cross-country journey, murdering not just clickers, but a lot of human beings. And they weren't the only humans around. So it is no surprise that they built a story around, okay, what are the consequences of that adventure? And it's not just Joel and Ellie's relationship. It is the far-flung ramifications of their actions.
The thing I always say, the thing I've been saying or screaming internally for the last few days is to the people who are mad that Joel was killed so viciously, what would you do if someone shot your dad in the head? Like, what would your reaction be? In 2020, maybe you would, I don't know, call the police. That's proven not to be the best plan. Like, if we have current systems in place in a quote unquote gigantic air quote functional society, functional world that routinely fail us, remove those things entirely, create a lawless land with mushroom monsters everywhere. Somebody kills your dad who is trying to make the world a better place, who is repeatedly shown in flashbacks in this game to not only be a good, just man, but somebody who will put his own life in danger to save a baby zebra. That man is unceremoniously shot in the head by like a crazy dude just out of nowhere.
Yep.
What do you do? What do you let it slide because that guy who killed your dad won the best character poll, GameFAQs 2017, or do you go out for blood? And
I think those people would say, well, first of all, I'd go to change.org and make a petition.
Yeah.
Second of all, I would like anybody who has human feelings would be like, yo, I might have to go do the National Lampoon's, cross country trip and kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And like make it happen because that is the person who literally saved my life. Yes, they have made amazingly selfish choices. And those choices come to bear, and those decisions and those conversations come to bear throughout the game. But at that moment, the person that you love the most, the person that saved you, is murdered in front of you.
Yep.
In a brutal way. And you mean they're just going to be like, well, we should definitely talk this out. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's so brilliant, is intertwining these two perfectly justified in their own thoughts and passions and hearts, characters who are at war with each other and ultimately come to an impasse where they realize that decimating each other to smithereens is not enough, and that they've almost lost everything in the process. They took turns routinely making incredibly selfish sacrifices at the detriment of everything around them, some for distance, other for death. And the end result is this impasse where all they can do is start from zero and build back up again. It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, it's I think we have to sort of get into the Abby of it all, because that really is I think the masterful trick that this game pulls off is presenting this person as, your assumed bad person, the villain of the game, and then for half of it you are them and you are forced to live through their life and understand this person. And at the end of the day, like, the game allows you to say, oh, I agree with Abby's choices, I don't agree with them, but you experience them, and I think it does a fantastic job of making you understand and making them feel earned and reasonable. And I like the fact that this game is able to pull that off in half of a game that comes after one of the most beloved video game stories of all time is just speaks volumes about like their storytelling abilities. And I think on every facet of what this huge team has pulled off in the acting and the animation and the writing and the storytelling, like all of that really boils down to the Abby of it all.
Yeah, those two characters and the few around them, I think there's a really strong core group in this game, and they're all really, really well acted, are, I think, far more effective at showing what it's like to navigate that world violently and emotionally than, say, what I thought this game was attempting to do from the jump, which was to speak on violence as a whole. I think it's way less successful at that. I think that that moment we saw in that PlayStation thing a couple weeks ago, where they showed her killing the woman with the Vita, and then she's like, I shouldn't have done that. I counted after that scene, I killed 34 more people. And Ellie didn't say anything about any of them. And so, like, I do think that there is a dissonance between like cutscene Ellie and gameplay Ellie, and same thing with Abby. And I think that ultimately comes down to the fact that it is a video game. Although a lot of that is contextualized by your own personal choice. You can sneak past a lot of the things in this game. I personally meleeed and slit throats constantly just because I don't know, felt right. Like I said, I'm a big horror fan. Like, yeah,
got to give the animators their due. It was like,
yeah, I'd rather like
do all that work.
Do all that work. I'd rather slit a neck open or stomp on someone's head than shoot them when I have the choice, or just sneak by them. I'll sneak by them in like a game that's full on stealth. But this one, like, I don't know. Like I said, like I'm vicious dude. I love horror movies and stuff like that. Like I would much rather do that. So yeah, obviously, your manufacturer may vary or whatever. Like if you sit down and you play this game, you sneak by everyone, and then Ellie kills someone in a cutscene, you're like, oh man, I didn't do that. And that makes sense for you. But if you're going through guns blazing or like shivs out, cutting necks and stuff like that, then it is a little weird when she stops to be like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. But it's a video game at the end of the day,
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think it fits the mood of the game. It's kind of, I'm not going to say it's the way to play it, but again, like the ideas that are surrounding Ellie, her motivations to me make sense. The world impedes on you and presses upon you this need to be vicious in ways that you kind of feel like you need to. And it felt good to be able to have that catharsis with the world that we have right now and the time that's spent with that game, to feel like in a place where I feel powerless often, to feel powerful through this character, which was exactly what I was hoping for. So that was great.
That's a really good way of putting it, because I actually thought the opposite would happen going into this game, where I was like, this is going to parallel our real life reality too much. But I think that you nailed it, because it's having control over something, I think has been incredibly empowering for everyone playing every video game during the pandemic, because we are at so much sort of lost for structure and understanding of what's next. And I think it's why people lobbed on Animal Crossing so much, because it was a happy communal game, but you could also like get a new room in your house. Like I would pay all my money for one of those right now, because I've paced around the ones I own, that I rent already enough times. And so yeah, I'm totally with it. Same thing happened with me with this game, like having this sort of massive journey of these two characters across these sort of vast, although albeit dilapidated lands, was really freeing and empowering for like a dude stuck in a 2-bedroom apartment with like a wife and a toddler. Like it was kind of nice to get out there and shank some throats.
Love it.
Well put. Yeah. I mean, I do think it does speak to, I guess, especially the first game, I think gets most of its criticism for like, well, is the gameplay actually living up to the storytelling on that level? And I think the thing that comes across for most Naughty Dog criticism is, does the gameplay live up to their ambitions on a storytelling level? And I feel like in this game it does. Like I really do feel like the layers to the combat and to the systems at work here, it's small touches like being able to jump or go fully prone, but so much of that stuff makes such a world of difference, and it actually made me wish there was a multiplayer mode. Like I know that they've talked about wanting that to come, but man, like the level of variety you can get in any combat scenario, I was like, imagine putting this in the hands of just all human characters and watching what would happen.
Dude, how many times did you walk into like a big environment and go like, ooh, this is going to be a really good multiplayer map?
Yes.
Like
so many.
I had that a bunch of times. Especially there's that stadium. They built a whole stadium, and then you just walk by like two goats and like a steak. I'm like, we're using this for something. Like, it
makes me so sad that there's no MP in this game. Like
I know,
because all the small details that was in the first multiplayer game, the crafting feels better, the movement feels better, your ability to kind of like navigate spaces all feel better. So all those small refinements that they did in between the two games feels like it would be so good in a multiplayer setting at this point, to be able to do that with all the other animations and with the new skins for all the other characters that would be in there. Like I want to be Isaac so bad in the multiplayer game.
Oh yeah.
Like
I didn't realize that was Jeffrey Wright.
Me neither until later. And I was like, yo, Jeffrey Wright is killing it right now. This is dope.
Shannon Woodward and I started following each other we did like this Animal Crossing video together the other day, and she was Dina in the game, and she tweeted out a screen cap and tagged Jeffrey Wright, and she was like, hey, it's like my friend from Westworld. And I was like, oh, that's right. And this whole thing hit me. I was like, oh my God, everybody was just at the top of their game in this game. Like the acting was, even his introduction was awesome. Like,
it's so
where he's just like, yeah, he's a great character.
So good.
It's a really great cast across the board. And I feel like they gave a really great attention to detail and time for all of these supporting characters, so that even if they're not your favorite, like you understood their place in this world and what they were trying to go for and what their hopes and dreams and goals were. And it did such a great job of making, like, man, I cared so much about Yara and Lev during that last bit of the game. Like the phenomenal work they do in such a short time is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, Lev was really. I mean, it's funny because I'm kind of here on Lev. Like I have triggers from the Golden Child Eddie Murphy movie way back in the day, and I feel like those two characters are the same character, and I hated that kid back in that movie. I'm just dropping all the old school references today.
Yep.
Love it.
But it was nice to have that play, right, where it's like, oh, Ellie in the first game was the mirror of Lev in 2, which is the innocence is there.
Yep.
All those things that bring that character to full bear are reasonable and kind of sweet in a game that is not sweet in lots of different ways. So it was nice to have that small like layer of nice in the game too. So yeah, love was good. I talked crap about him on the show previously that I did, but I'm warming up to Lev the more I get a chance to play around with him.
Fair. Yeah, I'm really excited to revisit the adventure too, because I do think it will benefit so much from a replay. I actually kind of stopped myself because I was trying to go back for the platinum, and I got stuck trying to find cards for like an hour, and was like, "This is not fun. This is not why I'm playing this game and love this game.
Right.
I'm going to put it aside for a bit and jump back." But so obviously there is a ton more. I was so scared the connection was going to cut, and I'm not lying. There's so much more we could talk about for The Last of Us Part 2. We'll end the conversation there because we'll have plenty more weeks to talk about it. And as we figure out more spoiler casts and things, Khalif, if you want to come back to talk more Last of Us, please do. But of course, just to talk about PlayStation. We do have some other PlayStation news that I did want to jump on because we didn't get to address it on last week's show. And mostly it's that PlayStation has been doing a few follow-up pieces of info to some of the PS5 reveals. They've done one on Horizon and one on Ratchet & Clank that kind of gave us a bit more information. But the big one, obviously, is with Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, because there was all this confusion that we touched on a little bit last week on the show of, is it a standalone game? Is it an expansion? What's going on with it? So as we recorded last week's show, we did know that it was a standalone game, but then they put out this feature video on it that gave us a little bit more of a sense of what we're actually getting here. And did you guys feel like this was a good response to that conversation that was happening, that unnecessary muddying of the conversation around what should have been a really cool reveal?
I think they did a really good job of covering their asses. To be honest, I think it was really smart the way they did it. They were like, "All right, so we messed up with the black community, the brown community, because we basically made this like a side story, or at least we messaged it out like it was a side story. Everyone flipped their stuff and then was mad about that. And they came back with a really good, small, smart, quick and dirty explanation of, though, this is an actual full game. We're going to give Miles his due, and we're also going to put a black dev on this so we can actually have people have an idea that, like, yes, we have people on the team who understand it, get it, and are going to be able to, be folks who understand the impact of what this is for the community. I think it was smart. I mean, it is one of those things where my face was like, I see what's happening here. But I appreciated it because, one, I think Insomniac, again, like, they do fantastic work. I don't have a feeling that there was ill will in the fact that they didn't share that out, or the messaging got muddied when they had that conversation. But I think in terms of, cleaning it up for the community, so you didn't get a lot of mess towards the end of it, like, it was smart. They did a good job.
It was definitely, I think, the best way they could have handled it that quickly out of the gate. And I'm glad they didn't let it hang for too long, and they did just jump right into it and address what was needed, especially because that game's coming out this year, which is kind of nuts.
Exactly.
Khalif, I do want to sort of get your general impressions of it, because obviously it's arguably the biggest PS5 game that we're looking forward to right now for launch. What did you think about the reveal and kind of everything we know about the game so far? What were your thoughts on the original Spider-Man?
I love the original. I was a little upset that there were no black people in Harlem in that game, which was really interesting, or at least from what I remember. I was like, gentrification in the game too? What's happening here?
I think we talked about that on this show too. It was like they completely missed the point there. There was like a breakdancing crew at one point, and I was like, okay, that's sort of like a cartoon representation of Harlem.
It was. But
it brought in the Harlem Globetrotters, isn't that enough?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, if you're going to do it right, you got to do the Harlem Globetrotters Scooby-Doo episode. You got to do that.
Exactly.
But I love the first game. The first game was fantastic. What I'm really excited about, actually, with the second game is, like, again, we're talking about the tech. Cerny got on stage and talked about no loads. It's going to be huge. You're going to be able to expand these worlds out into ways that we've never seen before. To me, the game is going to be the game. Like, it's going to be gorgeous. We know it's going to be pretty, and it's going to do those things that hit that Marvel note. I want to see how the tech builds into all this stuff. I want to know how fast things are going to move. I want to know how big the world is going to be. It makes me really excited for the idea that with all this horsepower and all this memory and all these great SSDs IDs and all that, we'll finally maybe be able to go to the other boroughs, which I think is really interesting too. That was a thing that was always grayed out on the map. And I was like, I want to go to the Bronx. Why can't I go to the Bronx? Like, this is freaking awesome. And you have all this tech. Can we build this out so that that expansiveness, that expanse is going to be bigger and move into other spaces? So that's what I'm actually really excited about, to see is, you know, how the world building works in this. How big can they go? Because I think with a team that has had hardware forever at this point, we know they probably had dev kits way earlier than other studios. It's going to be our first look to see what we may see in other open world, larger games that may be coming in down the pipe, down the road. So I'm excited for it. I'm hyped to see what they do with Miles and see how they kind of incorporate him into the rest of the story.
Do you remember when you would try to go to the outer boroughs in that game, and there was do you guys remember the boat people? Yeah, there was that whole meme. I think they patched it, but there was that meme going around for a minute where you could basically swim into the water or like get up near the boat, and all the boats people were like these nightmare N64 dudes with like 4 polygon.
Yep.
So hopefully the power of the PS5 fixes that. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to. No, the thing is about the first one was like, what were you gonna say?
That's what they put all their work into for this.
Yeah.
At outside. Yeah.
The first one was such like a it's honestly one of the I would say like best sort of like video game engine feelings I've ever felt, like in terms of just navigating that city was so much fun. But to be frank, I don't remember where they hit all the collectibles because it was so manic just flying around and grabbing them. And so to be completely honest with you, if they were all right back exactly where they were, but it's been a few years, I probably wouldn't notice. I hope they move them around. They said they're reworking the city a bit, so I'm totally cool with that. I really like the sort of New York City winter aesthetic, minus all of the garbage that actually comes with New York City winter. Because people always forget, like when you see pictures of New York City around Christmas, it's always the snow is coming down. People don't realize. Khalif, you realize this because you live there. When the snow hits the ground, it stops becoming beautiful, and then it turns into. And so, Jonathan, you live there too. It turns into a 4-foot moat of just tundra and slosh and just disgusting gray. It's awful. Yep. It's awful. And so you won't have to deal with that in a video game. So I'm excited about that. It'll just be all the beauty of New York City at Christmas time without any of the part where your shoes get completely soaked. So
no, the PS5 haptic DualSense feel is going to be trudged through all of that dirty snow as you walk through this New York.
That's right. It's going to spit water in your face.
Oh, you wanted puddles? We're throwing the puddles right in your face.
Oh wow. Good throwback. I love that.
As we're wrapping up a little bit on time, though, wise, Khalif, I did want to ask, from that reveal event, were there any other exclusives or any really just big games that were showcased there that really stuck out to you, that really have you excited PS5 wise?
I mean, of course, Horizon is there. I'm really excited about that. Honestly, really, one of the things I was really excited about that they spoke nothing about was the new camera. And that's the thing that I was like, oh, I want to know what that's about. First of all, how the hell am I going to put that on the TV? Because my TV's skinny. That thing doesn't look like it's going to fit on anything. And second of all, it makes me, again, like, just think about, are we going to get a PSVR 2? Which I think more than likely we are.
Yeah.
So that led me to that kind of conversation in my own head to say, like, when are you going to drop that? Because then I'm going to jump in heavy when it comes to PSVR 2 with the rumors that I've heard swirling around it. So yeah, the games looked good. Of course, NBA 2K 21 is going to be fantastic. It looks good. I always think of sports games as being the harbingers of what we're actually going to see from a tech standpoint. They usually are the best games to kind of showcase the new visuals in a game. You know, 2K is going to be the thing that I'm really excited for when that drops.
Yeah, it made it even stranger too that EA didn't really put any of their next gen stuff in EA Play, when it's like, that would have been a really great time to show us what the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of these games look like. Yep. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. Unfortunately, also, I know we're running out of time with you, Kahlief, for this week. We'll have to have you back very soon. More Last of Us to talk about, but more PlayStation and everything. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, boys, for having me. I'm so sad I had to tip out a little bit early this week.
It's
because
cool.
Oh, world is the world and work and stuff. But of course, this is one of my bucket list things. I never thought that I'd be able to get on beyond and rock with two wonderful folks like yourselves. So again, thank you, everyone in the IGN community. You've been amazing for all the stuff that I've been able to do with y'all as well. So I'm really excited to come back and chop it up some more.
Khalif, thank you so much for coming on. I've been wanting him to do a show with you for like 8 years now, and we're just two ships passing in the night. People miss it. Right before we started recording, we were just geeking out about like old music stuff for like 45 minutes straight. It was great.
I saw you on one of the other boats, but you were only 4 polys, so I didn't know what you were. I was like, yo, I think that's Brian, but I don't know because his face is kind of muddy in the way that everything works.
His head is just fully square.
Yes.
Well, with that, thank you, Khalif. Where can people find you and find Spawn on Me online if they want to check out the rest of your work?
Spawn on Me is on all podcast platforms. We do our show live on Twitch every Thursday, 7 p.m. PST. We're on YouTube. We're trying to push really hard on YouTube, so please, go there, subscribe to all that stuff so we can get bigger over there. And of course, we're doing some fun things throughout the year. We have our Spawn for Good charity event that we usually run. This year, we're going to be focusing again on getting the vote out for the election. So that's going to be really important for people to come through and rock with that. So yeah, you'll see me online. I'll be around for sure.
Absolutely. And we'll be sure to have you on very soon again. Thank you so much for joining us, Khalif.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Khalif for joining us this week. Definitely check out all of the great work Spawn on Me puts out every week. Go support them however you can. They do fantastic stuff. We'll definitely have him on soon, sooner than later for sure. Of course, though, as we wrap up, I do want to mention, Brian, earlier in the show, you were talking about how it's just so great and so rare to get something like so profoundly deep and dramatic as the story in The Last of Us and told so well as we do get there. And we're going to get it again this year because on October 2nd, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time is going to hit the PS4 and the Xbox One. I just have to mention, I know we don't have to go into a long diatribe. I just wanted to mention because I'm exceedingly happy about it.
Yep.
We have first gameplay look and details on the website that Max and I did a convo about, so you can get a first look at the gameplay. A bunch of new details. There's a modern versus retro mode thing happening there. It's made by the team who did the Spyro Reignited trilogy, and they do beautiful work. I loved the art in that game. This looks just as beautiful. So go check all that stuff out. We'll have some more stuff, including some more gameplay on IGN coming soon. So definitely check everything out that we have going on with that game. But
man,
I'm very excited.
We that's such a perfect scenario. I remember seeing the remastered graphics and being like, they have to be using this for something new or building towards something new, and seeing that they are is really cool. So they sent you a puzzle.
So they sent me a puzzle with so there's 4 quantum masks in the game that'll give Crash different powers. And they sent a puzzle a little bit before they announced everything. And it just was like, here's a puzzle from your favorite Bandicoot. And there's literally no other information with the puzzle. So at the time when I got it, I was like, I don't know what this is for other than Crash. And so you can make the obvious guess that it's a new Crash game, but we work toward the embargo after the fact. So I when I got that puzzle, it was genuinely like this is fun, but what's happening? And honestly, after the egg for Spyro and the fuzzy dice that I got for Crash Team Racing, a puzzle was really nice because they've been like $200 on Amazon during Shelter in Place. So
puzzles, yeah.
Who knew that stock in puzzles would be the thing to get in Shelter in Place times? But it was a fun, nice start to this reveal that I really liked. But we'll definitely be talking about that game more in the future. Brian, sort of as we wrap up, I was wondering, have you been playing anything else? Obviously, The Last of Us has taken up a lot of the time, but anything else?
Yeah. Just as I finished The Last of Us, I was kind of poking around to look for something that was a little bit more kind of chilled and lighthearted. And I started playing this game, Beyond Blue, which you might have seen recently in some kind of press conference-y shaped things. It's sort of like a HD PS4 version of a game that I really loved on Nintendo Wii called Endless Ocean.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's essentially like an open world underwater exploration game. In this one, you play a live streaming scuba diver who goes around kind of Metroid Prime scanning different fish and crawling through caves and swimming underground and showing off, like basically finding details and putting together like kind of the story about the way the ocean comes together. It's really, really beautiful and it's super chill. I think it's out pretty soon, if not now. And it's it gets a little wonky at parts. Like, you know, there's a little bit of clipping when your character's kind of wiggling around underwater in some caves here and there. But for the most part, it's like one of the most relaxing games I've played in a while. And I think like totally in line with what we were talking about earlier with Khalif about playing something that's kind of open and free in an era where we can't really do that. Like I can't really go scuba diving right now. Not like that would be at the top of my list anyway. But yeah, check it out. It's like really kind of laid back and gorgeous, and it does that really great thing that like a game like that would do, where when a huge whale floats by you and you're right there, like there's a big power and presence to it, and it feels really awesome. And yeah, check that game out if you can, because I think you would dig it, especially you, Jonathon.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've seen a few like bits of gameplay and always been sort of interested in it, but forgot to check it out. I definitely will soon. I was busy in the seas playing 2 other underwater games. I reviewed Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, and
that's right.
I did not love it, and I gave it a 5, and everyone hates me. So that's about all I'll say on that game probably for now. And then I also reviewed, I didn't review, excuse me. I played Maneater over the weekend. I platinumed that.
Ooh, you platinumed it.
I platinumed it because when I beat it, I was like 85% done with collectibles. So I thought, might as well keep finishing it.
Yeah, I was super deep into that game, no pun intended. And then I got The Last of Us 2, and I switched over to that. But I can't wait to finish.
It lends itself to those puns. It's a really fun, like frivolous game. Like I can't think of how else to describe it, but like I'm so happy to have had it for a weekend, and I played for like 10 hours total, and I saw all of it, and it was just done, and it was a nice like compact quick experience. And it's, you know, like the human character models look awful, and there's like overly repetitive jokes. They just keep rehashing some of it, but like there is a charm and a fun to just being a giant shark and progressively getting bigger and finding all these weird secrets in the sea. It's a simple but really satisfying loop that they get you on early on that I just kept following.
I'm totally with you. It's like one of those things I've always described as like a video game where it's just, you know, it is not trying to beat you over the head with dramatic story and characters and stuff like that. That's actually what I like. It was really interesting to go from that to Last of Us to Beyond Blue, because they're so disparate. But yeah, I love Maneater. I can't wait to get back and finish it. It's weird to flank The Last of Us with 2 weird underwater games.
Yeah, it's been for a summer where we can't go to the beach. It's nice to be able to have the beach come to us. And that's my cheesy line, probably to wrap up the rest of the show. Before we end the show, I just want to genuinely ask, because like I feel like we haven't talked a while. How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's been a weird couple of weeks. It's been a weird year. Like on a personal level, I'm having trouble coming up with a lot of excuses why I can't take my kid to the zoo when she asks me about them every day. And so but we're trying to make the best of it. I've been cooking a lot, you know, been like not just like sourdough and banana bread, just like kind of going all out. I know you love cooking too, so I think that's one of those things of like having a finite sort of quadrant of control over something. But yeah, it's been good. I feel like I'm finally able to like reconnect with like video games again. I think that there was a while there where I didn't have the attention span to play anything too heavy duty, and now I'm kind of all in again, and so that feels good. We got an email saying we're probably not going to be back in the office until September at the earliest, and so part of that was dreadful, and the other part of that was, well, like, this is it, you know, let's make the best of it. And so you know, I'm just trying. How about you?
It's been a weird month with especially Summer of Gaming. I think having the team so crazy busy that I felt the same way. Like the Last of Us review was sort of this like, okay, no, go back and focus on playing games for a bit and like be able to get back into the cycle of that. And especially with Iron Man coming next week and then Ghost in a few weeks, like it's nice to have so many of these big, exciting adventures and really different ones to look forward to.
Yeah.
As much as we can't escape, these rooms have been really welcome escapes at a time when they're really needed.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like when you look at the like if you go to like Amazon Prime and you go to rent a video or something, all the new, it feels like the new movies basically just stop dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
Like I went on Rotten Tomatoes or like Box Office Mojo, and those sites are just like,
Do you know what the number one movie was this weekend at the box office?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? it was on like 98 screens. It makes me so happy. And I think Jaws was like number 2 or 3. So Spielberg had a good weekend.
Yeah. Finally, he's getting his due.
Yeah, but it does feel like video games are still happening. I mean, the Ghost of Tsushima team put out this big sort of like cast team photo of like their Zoom like conference call. The game's gone gold. It's officially coming out. They brought that game to the finish line while working from home, and so it seems like we've said a lot. It feels like the world kind of froze in the place it was when this first happened in March, I guess. But it does seem like that some of these studios are able to keep going, or at least pick up and bring the baton to the finish line based on where they were in the development cycle. And so I think it's, all things considered, it's going to be weird to be like, what a great year for video games. But when we look to these things to kind of help us get through what is in actual living nightmares and a lot of difficult hardships for a lot of people, I think it's been really wonderful to have those things to count on.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially now having a better idea that the end of the year is going to be filled with a lot of that stuff too, with so many announcements. It's nice to see that fill out. And especially as life gets back to some sense of a new normal when people are going back out again, we'll see. It'll be nice to have these to continue to go back to. And of course, we'll be talking about them all on this show every week. But I think that pretty much will wrap us up for episode 652 of Beyond. We're live every Wednesday on beyond.ign.com, youtube.com/IGNBeyond, and your favorite podcast services around the world. Again, I know he's not here any longer, but a huge thank you to Khalif from Spawn on Me for coming on the show this week. It was absolutely a blast to have you on. We'll definitely have you on again soon. Thank you, Brian, for joining me this week.
Of course.
Anything you want to plug as we wrap up?
I hosted a 6.5 hour long charity live stream the other day with Terry Schwartz, where we visited 15 different Animal Crossing islands of some really cool people like Shannon Woodward from The Last of Us and Gary Whitta, Xavier Woods, Felicia Day, Ego Raptor, just tons and tons of really fun people that I've always wanted to work with. And so we clipped out a bunch of those. If you want to see those individual island tours, they're all on YouTube. So go check those out. They're only like 14 minutes each, and they're all really fun. So give those a shot. Was pretty proud of that because we got to raise some money for some good causes that day too. So plus everything going on with IGN Summer of Gaming, which is living up to its name of being an entire summer. It's been a lot, but it's fun. It's really fun stuff. So yeah, keep an eye on that.
Yeah, the Animal Crossing stuff was fantastic. I was watching a few of them on the VOD on the YouTube last night, and they're such a blast. And I'm so happy you guys were able to put all of that together, but also be raising money for such good causes.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun.
I'll also mention on our side, because this episode will come out after that, you may have watched the Marvel's Avengers War Table stream, which is the first time we've gotten a lot of information about that game in a long time. That game is also going to be our IGN first for this next coming month, which I am doing the coverage for. So check back this week. I believe it should be up for more continued coverage. I went hands-on with the game, spoke to a bunch of the dev team, and we'll have a bunch more new stuff to come. That game was just also confirmed for PS5. Free upgrade if you play it on PS4. So we'll definitely be covering that one in the weeks to come. Stay tuned for more on that. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening and or to watching this episode of Beyond. We hope you're safe. We hope you're well. And as always, Beyond.
Beyond.